All right, diving right in today. We're looking at the Ukrainian war, and
Yeah,
things are changing fast. So we're going to give you a clear, concise update on what's happening.
right. The pace of developments is
Yeah.
really something else. New weapons, new players, and this constant back and forth between diplomacy and, you know,
Yeah,
military escalation. It really is a dynamic situation.
dynamic is the word. So let's get right into it. Starting with this new Russian hypersonic missile, the Oreshnik. It's been making headlines. We've seen hypersonic missiles, but
Right.
what's the big deal with this one?
What sets the Oreshnik apart is its maneuverability. Think about it. Most hypersonic missiles, they follow a predictable path, making them, well, at least in theory, easier to intercept.
Yeah.
But the Oreshnik, well, it can change course mid-flight.
It-
Imagine trying to hit a moving target.
Oh, wow.
That's also traveling 5 times the speed of sound. That's the challenge we're talking about here.
Wow. So strategically, what are we looking at here? I mean, we're seeing reports that it's been used against Ukrainian targets. So
Right, and the reports suggest it's been quite effective. And
Yeah.
this raises concerns about the potential for further escalation.
Right.
Could this lead to even more devastating attacks? Could it draw other countries, other nations into the conflict? I mean, these are some of the questions that a lot of folks are asking.
Yeah, for sure. And speaking of new players, North Korea. Now, this one, I got to admit, this one caught me off guard. North Korean troops in Ukraine. I mean, what's going on there?
Well, this might come as a surprise,
Yeah.
but there have been multiple reports of North Korean troops and their equipment being spotted in Mariupol and Kharkiv.
Mm.
And we're not just talking about a small presence here. Estimates suggest we could be looking at thousands of troops.
Thousands. Wow.
Yeah.
So why is North Korea choosing to get involved in a conflict so far away from their own borders? There's got to be something in it for them.
Right. Well, there are several possible explanations, and analysts are debating the motivations behind this move. One theory is that North Korea is seeking closer ties with Russia,
Okay.
potentially in exchange for economic aid or, maybe military technology. Another possibility is that they see this as an opportunity to gain real-world combat experience for their troops, test
Yeah.
their equipment against Western technology.
Right. Yeah.
All of that makes this development really significant.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
It definitely adds another layer of complexity
That's
to an
right.
already very complicated situation.
Yeah, definitely. It's not just about the troops on the ground. You got to think about the weapons.
Right.
We've seen Ukraine using those long-range missiles supplied by the West and hitting targets right inside Russia.
Yeah, that's a pretty big change, isn't it? I mean, early on, we weren't seeing Ukraine retaliate like that. So
Yeah.
what kind of missiles are we talking about here?
Well, Ukraine's been using a mix, including the American-made ATCMS and then the British Storm Shadow cruise missiles.
Okay.
These things have a range of hundreds of miles,
Wow.
enabling Ukraine to hit targets deep inside Russia. Air bases, supply depots, command centers.
So, I mean, these strikes are having a real impact on Russia's ability to keep fighting.
Absolutely. Disrupting supply lines, forcing Russia to reposition those key assets,
Yeah.
undermining their overall strategy.
Yeah.
But they haven't gone unanswered.
Of course, Russia has responded with those attacks on Ukrainian cities.
Oh, yeah. Devastating attacks on cities like Dnipro and Sumy. Tragic civilian casualties.
Yeah.
These attacks seem to be a direct response to Ukraine using those long-range missiles.
Right.
Really showcasing that tit-for-tat nature that we're seeing.
Yeah.
Each side responding with even greater force.
Yeah, it's a sobering reminder that even with all this talk about diplomacy,
Mm-hmm.
the reality on the ground is pretty grim. You mentioned diplomacy earlier, so what's the latest there?
Well, despite all of that, diplomatic channels are still open. Negotiators are working behind the scenes trying to find a path to peace,
Right.
but it's a delicate balancing act.
I bet.
While these talks are going on, both sides are also ramping up their military actions.
Yeah, that's got to make it tough to build any kind of trust to move towards a resolution. I mean, is there even a realistic chance of a negotiated settlement at this point?
Well, that's the million-dollar question.
Ah,
The path to peace, well, it's full of obstacles. Both sides have dug in their heels and their demands. Well, they seem pretty irreconcilable right now. You see, Russia insists that Ukraine recognize that annexation of Crimea and the Donbas region,
yeah.
but Ukraine demands a restoration of its full territorial integrity.
It sounds like finding common ground is going to be a tough one. It's definitely complicated. A lot of factors at play here. We've got new weapons like the Oreshnik, North Korea getting involved, and those long-range missile strikes. It makes you wonder what a successful resolution even looks like.
Right. That's the big question, isn't it? And it's one that, world leaders are grappling with. I
Yeah.
think it's easy to get caught up in the day-to-day headlines,
Right.
the missile strikes the troop movements, but finding a lasting solution, well, we need to think beyond just stopping the fighting.
So we need to look at the bigger picture here, the
Exactly.
underlying causes.
Any lasting peace, it's going to require addressing the root causes of this whole conflict.
Yeah.
Historical tensions, geopolitical interests, the security concerns that have fueled this crisis.
Yeah.
We've got to ask ourselves, what would it take for both sides to feel secure enough to lay down their arms? What compromises might be necessary?
And it's not just about Ukraine and Russia anymore, is it?
No,
We've got North Korea involved now, the West providing support to Ukraine.
it's become a global issue,
Yeah.
potentially far-reaching consequences.
It feels like we're at a turning point here. Things could escalate further, drawing in even more players, or we could see some kind of shift towards a negotiated settlement, however fragile that might be.
Right.
A lot to think about.
It is. And there are no easy answers. But I think the key takeaway here is the importance of staying informed, critically evaluating all the information that's out there, understanding the wider context of all this. We
Yeah.
can't just sit back and watch this happen.
You're right. The more we understand, the better equipped we are to have these conversations about this conflict and what it all means. So to our listeners out there, we encourage you to keep digging deeper, keep asking questions, and keep engaging with this really important topic. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into the ever-evolving situation in Ukraine.